Hi, ever wonder what it's like to work another profession or live in the underworld? Listen to unsuspecting riders give a 10 to 15 minute personal masterclass as I spontaneously interview them as they enter my taxi. I'm your host, Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today's going to be a very interesting one. We've got a sad situation where our client or our rider, her sister had taken her own life. Sadly, mental health, depression, and she's going to talk about it. And I feel it's very important for people to understand why and even the signs and symptoms so they can help their own loved ones. So nice to have you here today, Sally.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us where do you start really? It's like give us a bit of background about your family, how long you've been here, what have you, and then roll into your situation with your sister.
Yeah, I think I would say I've had a good family upbringing, nothing too fancy, but I guess my parents always tried to provide for us as much as they could. But obviously we were obviously quite a poor family when we were younger, and I think that subconsciously it does have effects on people, even if the parents try their best. But I would say overall, my sister and I, we shared a room for 20 years, and so it was I would say I'm quite an okay person now. So I would say it's nothing really to do with the parental upbringing, but I think that what happened is that my sister was just, I think some people are more prone to mental instability than others. I think I always try to, you can always feel down sometimes, but you have to get yourself up at some point. It's okay to feel weak, but at some point I think you either have the natural function in you that wants to make yourself feel better again, or you don't. And I think my sister really lacked that part in her that wanted to make herself better again.
Was your sister into social media? Was it?
Yeah. So one of the key things that I think was really, really not important, but really crucial, was that she was all the time on her phone and on her laptop and iPad. And we had to basically, we never knew what she was doing on there, but we knew that she was into very bad things on there. She was always talking about very cryptic things and telling about how she needed to help people online, and talking about how she had friends who were dying. And I think that, it's not a very healthy environment at all. But there was nothing we could do because she would not tell us anything, and she was extremely shouted for us. Like, sometimes I think that if Sophie had been with us in the pandemic, it wouldn't have changed her life too much.
Okay.
Because she was always inside in her room online all day.
Mm-hmm. Was there any? When did you notice that there was something wrong? How long was it? Like a month or a year?
We had known that she was not ill, but we knew something was wrong since probably she was about 14, 15, because she had a whole myriad of other mental issues as well. So it's been a very, very long time knowing about this, and there's always been a struggle with different things. I guess what we didn't know, because she always told us, was that she wasn't going to, she didn't have any suicidal thoughts. And there's nothing you can do when somebody tells you and somebody tells the doctors that there's nothing that doesn't want to kill herself. And she made a very good job of convincing the doctors as well, that and us, convinced both us and the doctors that she was fine. And so basically the doctors did not deem her a risk to herself. And then when she was older, she asked for the parents not to be contacted in things to do with her mental health.
So is that when she turned 16?
18.
18, okay.
But once she, and once that happened, there was, legally the doctors aren't allowed to tell the family anything.
Even if they feel the patient's at risk?
So the thing is that the doctors did not feel that she was at risk, because she told them that she wasn't at risk. Which is, for me, a very controversial thing, because I think that because they just basically relied on her word and her word only. So she had told them that she was self-harming to make herself suffer, and she had told them that herself. But because because the self-harming she was doing didn't need to be hospitalized, I guess, they said she's not a risk to herself, she's fine. And all the other stuff, she just told them that she was feeling bad, but not that bad. And so they said, well, then she's not a risk.
When we say self-harm, I only ask so other people can be aware regarding their own siblings or loved ones. What kind of thing are we talking about?
So I think the most common, at least what I understand, is just kind of, I don't want to go too graphic, but you kind of hurt yourself with a razor or a knife or something like that. And but the thing is, though, these things are very easy to hide, because you can just, who notices a knife taken from the kitchen or something, or you can, as anyone who grows up, everybody has a razor or something, or a sharpener. It's very easy to get access to these things. It's very easy to hide as well, so it's not very obvious, but and the thing is, though, is that sometimes people are very intelligent as well, so if they notice that people are starting to noticing, doesn't mean they'll stop. It means that they'll just try to hide it more in different ways.
And they can always justify, so, oh no, I just cut myself by accident.
Yeah, and then what will happen if somebody notices, well, then they'll just do it somewhere where somebody won't notice, like, for example, on the top of your legs or something like that, because how often would you say that you see your parents or your sibling or any family member's top of your thigh? You'd probably never, very rarely see that. And especially if they're a child, you're very rarely going to see that, because they have a right to privacy.
What was the social media or the websites that she was going on? Do you know?
No, I don't know at all.
Okay.
All we know that they weren't good. If it is impossible to get access to anything, that it's impossible to get access to the passwords and stuff. That
even the police can't do it later.
The police can't do it, no.
Okay, that's interesting, because I interviewed a data security guy, and his company was solely about getting access to things. Well, this was like, not to go off subject here, but there's a guy who's accused of a crime.
Yeah.
And he claimed his innocence, so they managed to get his family computer.
Oh.
And there's all passwords and whatever, and they worked out from the software that he had, which cost like £35,000, that the guy had, the wife had actually gone on the deep web and ordered cocaine to the house.
So the thing is, though, is that those things, of course, those are criminal proceedings. They would spend the money on that, but they're not going to. If they're not going to spend the money on a case like this, it's one, on Apple computers, it's very, very difficult, almost impossible, and two, the police aren't investigating this, so it's not. It's not really an investigation of sorts, so.
So appearance-wise, your sister just seemed normal, clean, tidy. There was no signs that
she was definitely sheltered. We knew that she was troubled, and that's why we knew she was seeking out help, and we encouraged her to get help. But she had told us she was getting help for like depression, and so we thought, okay, well, she's getting help, and then we encouraged her to get more help. She said no, and then but apart from that, especially once she was overeating, there's only so much you can do, because we weren't told anything. You know, for example, all of this information we didn't know until after she passed away, and then we got access to information that the doctors had been saying. But before that, we had no access to anything, so we only had information from what she told us, and she told us, well, I'm feeling depressed, I'm getting help.
Understand. What would be, if there's anything that you could do to change, obviously, apart from the obvious, what would that be? And this is not a judgment on you, this is just so if somebody's going through the same situation, they can think, oh.
Yeah. I would say, the thing is though, I think it's a very difficult kind of thing, because I don't think I'll be able to get into how complex, at least what happened with my sister really was. But I would say, you know, it's going to be controversial, but I would say don't trust entirely what the NHS kind of, the plan they put you on, because what happened with my sister was that they spent so long. First of all, they didn't deem her a risk. Secondly, they spent around 6 months, you know, putting her in between appointment to appointment, but not actually doing anything. So she was never actually put on a plan, because they spent 6 months just sending her to introductory meetings with different people. All the while she wasn't really getting any proper help, but actually feeling even more bad at the same time. But I would say just be very wary of, what internet access you give to the younger people, because it's really, really damaging what you can find online. And especially the more intelligent the child is, I guess the worse also things can end up for them, because they are so clever. They know where to look for stuff. Like, you know, don't underestimate how easy it is to find things online, and how easy it is to get kind of pulled into these things. Because part of me believes that she was definitely, you know, indoctrinated partially into, like, you know, a lifestyle of always feeling like there's no hope, and, you know, possibly, you know, this is just speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was in a forum where she was being encouraged all this stuff, because you don't learn, you don't just, you know, decide to kill yourself for nothing, and you don't, you know, humans, we don't know how to kill somebody, like, out of, you know, you have to learn that from somewhere.
Yeah, I see what you mean. See, that's why I asked earlier, was you aware of what websites, because my feelings is along the lines, even though I'm a total layman to this, I don't understand it. I'm only learning from you right now. There must be somebody or some website out there that's trying to convince young people
definitely
to behave in a certain manner.
I think there definitely is, and I think the thing is, though, what the difficulty is that more likely than not, it may not be a big, you know, may not necessarily be Facebook or Instagram or stuff like that, because that stuff is too monitored, if that makes sense. You know, it's too, you know, that stuff is too accessible to everyone. You know, you know, you can't write stuff like that on there and have it not be taken down.
So it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but you know, when you can Google, and I wouldn't recommend Googling, but it is very possible, because you can, you know, it's very possible to just get into a horrible rabbit hole. You know, I think it's similar personally, you know, to how kind of how people get, you know, radicalized and terrorism. It's very, very similar. They are those online. There is just that possibility, and it's not one website on its own. It can be hundreds of different websites and different URLs that, if you know where to find, if you have all you need is basically a source of your information, and then you can
find it anywhere. I understand that. Can I have to ask, did there any time you tried to take away the phone?
Yeah, so the difficulty is just, it's obviously this is going to be vast oversimplification of what happened with my family, but of course we did try to take away like the mobile or the iPad or the laptop. But one, for example, like we, if she's studying for exams and she was always studying, and you need the internet access to study, to be able to help you out with your work. And then, if we would try to confiscate other things, she would just turn around and give the phone. She would give the phone to us and say, I don't need it. So, in a way, it was almost like she didn't care.
Yeah.
And she, that was it. She said, well, I don't care. And she had a hobby. She liked writing, so she was writing. She's writing a book on her laptop. She needed access to her laptop. Okay. And that's why we tried, that's why we gave her actually an iPad to substitute the phone, because we said, you're texting all the time, but you need internet access. Okay, we'll give you the iPad so you can search up for things, but you can't be texting people. But then texting apps became available on the iPad as well. And then we found out that she was actually texting everyone on her iPad as well, when we didn't even know that was possible. And then, you can basically, any internet connection means that you can always have access to anything. And probably it's obviously she was probably on like Facebook and WhatsApp and Discord and all that stuff, but it's very, it's very difficult to, just kind of know what's going on there as well.
I understand that.
Yeah.
What you've been, I really appreciate what you've been telling us. I hope it's of use to people out there. Well, I believe it will definitely be. What would be your advice to somebody who's concerned about a family member?
I would say just, I guess, try to make yourself present with them as much as you can. But also, I would say, as the family member on the other side, understand that there's only so much you can do as well. Don't beat yourself up for certain things, because I think if somebody comes to you asking for help, you have to be there 110%. And you have to do as much as you can. And I think that's the duty of any person to any family member. And I think, try to get them engaged in stuff and try to get them away from the screens. And it's very hard in a pandemic now. But I would say the real thing that you need to do is just get them away from the screens, because when you're on the screen, it's very easy to just absorb yourself. You can't help somebody. You can't help somebody by just sitting with them and watching TV with them whilst they're on the phone. But if you take them out for lunch, take them out to do stuff, then that's just hours you're stopping. You're taking away from them being online. So, but I would say it's a very difficult thing, because you need to, I would say, just try to get mental health help as soon as possible. And I'm not saying don't trust them when they say that they're okay, but if you think that somebody is very, very disturbed, I would say just get them the maximum help that they can, because the thing is, though, is that when it comes to mental health, a lot of it is reliant on somebody's word. But the problem is that I think a lot of mental health help is focused on where they are at right now, for example. They have said they've had thoughts before, but they're not actively thinking of that right now, therefore they're fine. But you have to think, well, every single person who is actively suicidal at one point was thinking but not actively. Everybody starts from somewhere. You don't come out already you don't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to kill myself. You wake up feeling bad, then you wake up and then you feel, maybe suicide is a good idea. And then you wake up another day and you feel maybe it is a really, really good idea. And then you think, okay, I want to do it now. But I think a lot of mental health help kind of thinks about where they are right now and ignores the progression that can be. So I think what you need to do is, if there's any mention or any sort of, any mention of something like that, you have to take the action then. And but it will be very difficult on the family, and it won't be easy, and it won't be easy to talk about it as well, because when I was at school, I couldn't talk about any of this. If I'm not really, when somebody says, okay, I was ill, I broke my hand, I can get special considerations for my exam. You can't get special considerations when you just say, well, somebody's a bit ill, somebody's feeling down. And that was very, very tough for me and my family. It's a daily job, I would say, taking care of somebody who's mentally ill. And I would say it's tough on the parents, but also tough on the siblings as well, because the siblings naturally have to be almost not forgotten about, but they have to be put on the side, and that is tough on them as well.
So it's what we call in the military all hands on deck. Everybody's focusing on the one cause, which is that person.
Yeah.
Okay, well you seem to... I would have never have guessed you had that trauma.
No.
So you seem to, which tells me that you have a inner strength in you.
I think I am personally quite a strong person. But I think there's a lot of difficulty that I'm facing right now. And I think that's also the difficult thing, like, for friends. Like, right now, what I kind of feel is I feel very alone, because I feel that because people think that I'm doing so well, that people kind of not forgotten what's happened, but in a way that, they think, well, she's fine, so any weakness they just don't tolerate. And
when you say they don't tolerate, in what respect?
So, like, I'm feeling, I'll have bad periods, and rather than feeling support, I'll get, well, you need to pull yourself together. Well, you just need to be happy. It's just that simple. It's just this. It's just that. And then I kind of tend to, like, isolate. You isolate yourself when you feel sad, when you feel down. And for me, sometimes what I experience is that I isolate myself, and instead nobody speaks to me. And then you feel even worse. And so it's very difficult.
What I'm getting from you, or what I'm learning, I should say, is it's like the environment has a big part to play on.
I see.
So I was thinking, and I say this in the sense of, for people out there who are having a loved one who has issues, who's having this dilemma, if you took them, let's say, on holiday, and I mean a holiday where they're away from technology, they're away from things, they're learning and intimate about other cultures, and I don't know, whether for a month, let's say, do you think that would help?
Yeah,
it sounds
I agree, because I think, at least, what I need right now is that I just want I need people to kind of want to distract me with things, because I wake up in the morning and you have to be like, okay, well, all this is happening right now. There's a lot going on. And then on top of that, I have to then make myself feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, well, I have to suggest to watch a movie with a friend. I have to suggest this. I have to suggest that. And sometimes what you want is you just want to wake up and just have somebody say, oh, you know, let's make this tonight. Let's do this together.
I understand that.
And sometimes, you know, like I said, going on holidays, like, you know, just somebody just taking out somebody just taking away kind of another job you have to do.
Mm-hmm. I was in the military, and I started off reserves, like territorial army, and what we were told is that people who come back from tours, the death in the military is suicide in the military is high on people who are in reserves or TA. And they said the reason why is because the regular guys, if you notice your mate's feeling down, you say, Bob, what's going on?
Yeah.
He said, you know, blah, blah. So they come on, let's all go out. We're going to have a drink. We're going to have a bar, party, find some women or whatever. And it's like you don't really get that time to drop.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a balance that has to be struck, because you have to give the person space, but also only giving them space is also terrible for the person, because it may, you know, I think that nobody would say that having company is a bad thing afterwards. I think it's just getting the timing right, because sometimes I do want to be on my own as well. But what you need also is somebody to be available when you do want company. And, you know, and I think also to the person, you know, yes, they may want, you know, rather than being, okay, let's go out all the time. But I think what they would appreciate, and what, you know, I would appreciate, is that rather than, you know, okay, well, she needs some time alone, so we're just going to do all this without, you know, oh, okay, well, in front of your face, oh, okay, well, let's make some pancakes today, right? Yeah, sure, let's make some food, great. And you make the food in front of you, and because they assume you don't want any space, you want space, they don't speak to you. And so you see them all making plans and having fun, but, you know, you can't even ask to be in. Whereas somebody says, oh, you know, do you want food? Do you want to make food? Oh, no. Oh, thank you, but no thank you. Thank you, but no thank you. I kind of want some time to myself. At least you know that you have the option, that somebody was thinking of you. Because right now what I kind of feel is that I've spent the last few days feeling absolutely terrible about myself. There's lots of things going on. It's too long to describe in this. But there's lots of things going on right in this moment, in the last week, that has been absolutely terrible for me. And I've come back kind of feeling absolutely terrible. And then the thing that just made me feel even worse today was nobody, you know, none of my flatmates asked me, how are you doing? Or, well, you know, do you want to have lunch with us? I just saw them decide to make lunch together without me. And me just not speaking to anyone, and I feel even worse.
So I take it your sister passed recently?
Yeah, in the last year.
Oh, last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is still very recent for me.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we're just gone into the new year, sorry. Yeah, in that respect. You've been a superb guest, and I really feel for you, so I can understand. Obviously, you shared a room with your sister for
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. So you're seeing that empty bed, memories, all those kind of things, hard to deal with in that respect of things. You live alone now. Then you live with you don't live at home.
So I live with flatmates right now. So I live away from my family.
And have you got other siblings? Or was it just
No,
you?
it's just me and my sister.
Oh, okay. And from a parent point of view, so I'm a parent myself. My oldest child is 25. How have your parents managed it? That must be really hard.
I think they are struggling a lot, and for them it's incredibly hard every day. More on my mum, I think. But I think because it's small details that would make mum kind of suffer more. But obviously they're finding it incredibly hard every day.
Have they got any coping mechanisms you can share?
I think what they would say is just keep yourself busy. You know, don't let whatever's going on stop you from doing what you want, because then on top of you feeling sad about what's going on, you'll also regret not being able to do what you want to do. For example, like people will be like, oh, you know, take time off, you know, you don't have to do this. And my parents would say, well, you know, go for it, because if it wasn't for what happened, you would have wanted to do it. Wouldn't you rather try it and in the face of everything carry on and have done something you can be proud of, rather than 6 months on be having done nothing and then also feeling even worse because of everything that happened? You haven't even been able to do the other thing you've wanted to do, because ultimately keeping yourself busy is a distraction, and it's a thing that you can say, well, despite all of this, I've done this. Because I was given the option to kind of, because when it happened, I was just about to finish my dissertation, I was just about to finish my degree, all my exams are coming up literally in the next month. So my university was like, oh, but you can defer a year and come back in a year's time. And I said, what's that? I thought, you know, what's that going to do though? Because I'm just going to feel all my friends are going to graduate without me. Well, not there was a graduation this year, but all my friends are going to leave without me, and I'm going to have to do everything again, and I'm going to just feel set back, when I could just get it over with and start carrying on with my life like I wanted to do, to not let it stop me from doing what I wanted. You know, carry on with your plan.
You understand? So it's that progression of life. Just do what you want to do. From what I'm hearing, it's very hard as a friend, to know what to do, when to do for your loved one.
Yeah, I think it is quite difficult.
But would you say it's fair to always ask them? Always ask them as if to say, do you want to join in?
I think it should always be the thing. I think you should always ask somebody, because I think there's never any harm in somebody saying, you know, in somebody asking if you want to join in. When have you ever felt upset because somebody invited you to something? You always think, oh, you know, well, I'm a good enough friend that they've invited me out. Or they'll be like, oh, well, I've got, you know, in pre-COVID times, oh, I've got a party, I've been invited to this party, but if somebody else has invited me to a party, oh, I don't even know that person really at all. That's nice that they invited me. Okay, well, maybe I'll think them next time I have a party. But you always think, you know, you never feel upset that somebody's invited you to something. And I think that kind of goes on as well, you know, when somebody's going through a tough time. It's always, oh, you know, I'm glad that somebody's invited me to something, because, you know, at least they're thinking of me.
Yeah, I understand that.
And making plans in front of somebody, I think, can be sometimes the hardest thing. It's even harder to deal with.
Does talking about it help?
I think it does to a certain extent. I think talking does help if the person, like, you know, really wants to be there for you. But I think it's kind of hard when somebody always wants to put a certain bit of distance, so you always feel like you can't talk about what you really want to say. And then you're just kind of left with like an itch that's like, great.
I understand.
And I think that you don't always want to be the person to come up and be like, I want to talk about it now, because you never walk into a room and like, I want to talk about it.
That's true. You didn't get into a taxi and say, I want to talk about it. But
No.
You've, yeah, I understand that totally. Yeah. Well, there's a question. This has been a great interview. I've just got one last question, and then we'll call it a day, unless you've got anything else that you think we should know. I always ask this to all my guests. I ask this in the sense of, well, I suppose in the same manner really, and it's just, what impact do you want to have on the world?
I think what I want, I think probably given all the personal circumstances, that I want to help people who have been in similar positions to me. I want to give back the opportunities that I've been given, and I would say first impressions probably aren't really the thing you can judge people on, because somebody's accent or somebody's appearance or somebody's impression is not can completely hide a person's true story. So I think you should always be open with people, with anyone you meet and interact with. And I always try to be very open with the people that I interact with.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because I think everybody has a very complex story. And I think nobody, the put together person is not probably all put together, and the person who's a mess isn't a mess by choice as well. It's just all a combination of everything.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that. Much appreciated. Oh, one last question. One last thing, sorry. For people who are going through this, what help is out there? Do you know? Can you tell them what websites or where to go?
I mean, probably websites. I don't really know where to go. But I would say probably if you are going through something, just go find, get your therapist help and ask your friends around, because chances are your friends are probably going through a therapist right now, because all the therapists that I'm seeing, they're all recommended by people around me, so you'd be surprised.
Well, thanks again, and we wish you well, because you seem a very strong person, and like I said earlier, very well put together. We hope you liked that interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to get the latest daily episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economy and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources? Then listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you will hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m.